Joining us now, national reporter at The Washington Post and MSNBC contributor Carol Leonnig and vice chair of the Center for International Policy Board of Directors, Joe Cirincione. Joe, I want to ask you about this news that's just coming out of the Iranian parliament right now. They've approved a general plan to suspend cooperation with the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Well, that could be seen as a step towards their withdrawal from the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty. They are a member of the Nonproliferation Treaty. It bans them from having nuclear weapons. This is the kind of step they would take if they were, in fact, intending to move towards the construction of a nuclear bomb.
If that is the case, what is the advice you would give the United States government?
Find an off-ramp quickly. As the IAEA Director General, Rafael Mariano Grossi, told the UN Security Council over the weekend, it looks like Iran has, in fact, moved some of their highly enriched uranium gas out of the facilities that we're in. We know from satellite imagery, we could see trucks moving into some of these facilities before the airstrikes, apparently moving some of this gas. We don't know where it is. The IAEA doesn't know where it is. We've seen no indication from the administration that they know where it is. And this is the danger. While these strikes have certainly conducted damage to the facilities, as you were just discussing, it doesn't appear that we got the 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. That gas could be fed back into centrifuges at other sites, unhit sites, perhaps unknown sites. And within 5 days, they could convert that material into the core for one bomb. Within 2 weeks, they might be able to build 10 bombs. They may have already done it. If I were Iran, I would be seriously considering constructing the one weapon that they know can stop the U.S. and Israel from attacking it again. That's the great danger.
So you say that Donald Trump has committed the most basic of strategic blunders. Explain that.
Yeah, the fallacy of the last move. This is the belief that you have a clever, bold, or powerful move that can decide a dispute in your favor, but the enemy gets a vote. And now we're seeing Iran respond to this onslaught, first by Israel, now by the United States. They get moves. Is this a symbolic move? We just don't know. This situation is completely unpredictable. Is it a prelude? Are they probing? Are they looking to see what the response is going to be? Again, we don't know. There are a half dozen or more steps that Iran could take, ranging from closing the Straits of Hormuz to attacks on Israeli or U.S. interests globally, soft targets, businesses, individuals. There are many things that Iran can do. And I should add, Iran can absorb a lot of punishment. This is the largest country in the Middle East. This is a very large country with a sprawling nuclear complex, 92 million people, billions of dollars in reserves. This is not an easy target. They can take a lot of punishment and still not feel that they have to sue for peace. So if I was the president of the United States right now, I'd be looking to build a bridge that Iran might be willing to walk across, some compromise agreement that could end this before it gets worse.
Carol, where is the White House's head right now? And by the White House, I mean Donald Trump. What do we know?
Well, I think you know instinctively, but sources have also been telling the Post that the president feels quite vindicated. You know, he took a very strong, bold step, one of his favorite kind of words, you know, to be strong. And he's not apologetic or regretful about that. I remember hearing John Bolton say that many times, that Donald Trump's greatest and most unpleasant position is to be somewhere where he cannot reverse his decision the next day. And that is the one problematic thing for Donald Trump right now. He can't reverse this decision. Indeed, Iran is in a sort of a incredibly weakened state, having Israel and the United States now basically bombarding it, but it's also in a desperate state. And Iran was extremely successful in at least beginning plots in America to try to kill Donald Trump. Remember, we have twice now in 2024, our national security and our FBI authorities have twice now found plotters in the United States that had a series of individuals they were recruiting to kill Donald Trump. And they eventually got caught before they were able to implement their plans. But soft targets that are not Donald Trump in the United States, very, very plausible.
I wonder if you can tell me anything about, Carol, Donald Trump's decision-making process in deciding to strike Iran. I mean, in the past, he's talked about calling off strikes 10 minutes before they happened. He had to be shown images of children being gassed in Syria before he ordered strikes there during his first administration. And just watching him on Saturday night as he was delivering the address to the nation, alerting us all of the decision to bomb these nuclear sites. There was something strange about his energy.
Yeah. Well, what was your word for it? I'd like to hear what you were thinking.
He seemed, I mean, maybe nervous. I don't know. He seemed tense and a little less, just a little less confident than he normally is when he's making those sorts of announcements. A little less sure of himself.
Yeah. Well, to refer to his former national security advisor, John Bolton, this is a no-take-backseat kind of situation, right? And so I would be nervous, too. But the president also was basically relying on a group of people that are not really loyalists, per se, but are hawks. And when he made his decision, he was basing it on the intelligence assessment, for example, of General Carrillo, who commands our forces in the Middle East and Central Command. And he was relying on assessments that were more pessimistic about the possibility of Iran being able to produce bombs really quickly and a desire to, instead of existing intelligence, including from his own Office of the Directorate of National Intelligence and Tulsi Gabbard, saying they have no plans to create a nuclear bomb at this moment. And he also relied on Benjamin Netanyahu, who said to him, I think actually in a kind of a goading way, remember, they tried to kill you twice. Remember that. And that's pretty personal for Donald Trump, because when he ordered the strike in 2020 that killed the IRCG's leading general, when that happened with Soleimani, the revenge plan for Iran was born.
Joe, how do you get the Iranians back to the negotiating table? I mean, they're talking about, as we were mentioning a moment ago, pulling out of the IAEA. They might have moved their enriched uranium, and maybe they take the lesson from the North Koreans, build a bomb, build it now, then you have leverage. How do you, under these circumstances, after this attack, how do you get the Iranians back to the negotiating table? And then when you get them there, how do you trust them?
Well, negotiations aren't about trust. They're about deals that you make with your enemies. We don't really negotiate deals with our friends. So what you've got to do is offer them a compromise. I mean, you know, Donald Trump sort of negotiates like a mob boss. He puts a contract in front of somebody and says, I'm going to have your signature or your brains on this piece of paper. And that's the kind of deal he presented to the Iranians. Complete end of their program, no enrichment whatsoever. There's not a politician in Iran that could possibly accept that deal. So you've got to find a compromise, something that talks about the eventual complete elimination of enrichment, but allows it for a certain amount of time, or a suspension of enrichment while you're working out a deal. Compromises are there. We were actually close to a deal before Israel started bombing on June 13th. Remember, Donald Trump said we were fairly close to a good deal. Go back to that process. Use this as leverage to try to convince the Iranians. My fear is that the Iranians are in no mood to bargain right now. You talk about us not trusting them. They don't trust us. Every time they make a deal with the United States, we tear it up. Every time we make what we think are negotiations with them, we walk away from them. So there's a gulp at both sides. Let me just say one other point. Trump himself is in a very delicate position here. You remember 22 years ago when the Republican administration of George W. Bush went to war with Iraq and also misled the American people about the intelligence, misled the American people about the necessity of that war. They spent a year campaigning to build public support and their global allies to bring them along with this. So we're all involved in the takeoff. It was unpopular, but he still got a lot of support for that. Donald Trump did this overnight. If things start going south with this war, if the Iranian response escalates, he's on very thin ground. That could crumble beneath his feet. He doesn't have the allies with him. He doesn't have the American public with him. There are polls today that show that bubonic plague is more popular than war with Iran. So this is a very fraught moment for everybody involved in this three-sided war.
Yeah, and he has some very loud voices in the world of MAGA that have broken with him on this. I mean, lots of them have tried to inch their way back to Donald Trump, but others have remained very staunchly against this move to attack Iran. So we'll see. Carol Leonnig, Joe Cirincione, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.